Welcome to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship stations, 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99, where you can also find us in the Birmingham-Bloomfield area on Birmingham Area Municipal Access and on City Cable 15 of Southfield. Join us live on Channel 10 in Waterford every day on the media network of Waterford and live to tape on Channel 10 in Orion Township and Lake Orion on Orion Neighborhood Television, or as the cool kids call it, ONTV. You can also find us on the radio in the Birmingham, Bloomfield, and Troy areas on the Biff Radio Network, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District, 88.1 FM, WBFH. Find us online on our Facebook pages at Civic Center TV 15 and at Lakes FM, on our website at civiccentertv.com, and beginning with the Michigan Megacast at 11 o'clock on My Michigan TV or MyMy at mymytv.com, where you can also learn more about downloading their free MyMy TV apps for your smartphone and smart TVs. All that information is on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you can also find all of our programs on demand as well as each individual interview as well. Now let's head over to our coronavirus page at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, where we have links to the most up-to-date information on COVID-19 from reliable expert resources at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Oakland County Health Division, so that you can stay up to date on everything that you need to know about the spread of COVID-19 precautionary tactics such as masking and vaccination, as well as booster shots. Also on our coronavirus page at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, we feature articles from many journalistic outlets all across the state of Michigan in order to keep you up to date on COVID-19 and other stories making headlines across the Great Lakes state. Our top story today from Bridge, Michigan: according to a jury, 2 are not guilty in the Governor Whitmer kidnapping trial, and there's a mistrial for the other 2 out of 4. Jurors on Friday acquitted 2 men accused of plotting to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer and told a judge they were unable to reach a verdict on charges against 2 others charged in the alleged conspiracy. The jury of 6 men and 6 women in Grand Rapids found Daniel Harris, 24, of Lake Orion, and Brendan Caserta, 33, of Canton Township, not guilty of the felony conspiracy charges that were punishable by up to life in prison. But U.S. District Court Judge Robert Jonker declared a mistrial in the charges against the alleged ringleaders Adam Fox, 38, of Wyoming, Michigan, and Delaware's Barry Croft, who is 46, after jurors said they could not reach a verdict. Federal prosecutors say they intend to retry Fox and Croft, whom the Detroit News reported remained jailed. The acquittal of 2 men followed a nearly 4-week trial during which government informants and undercover agents played starring roles. But those same men may have been crucial to the acquittals, said the Detroit defense attorney Mike Rataj, who said, quote, "Clearly, the jurors didn't believe the government witnesses," Rataj said. He continued on. So he was the defense attorney for the federal government's last major domestic terrorism case in Michigan, the Hutari religious militia group near Adrian. As with the Governor Whitmer kidnapping case, the case resulted in no convictions as a federal judge in 2012 dismissed charges alleging 7 men plotted to kill police officers to spark a revolution against the government. The identity of Whitmer's jurors is private, but all are white and many are from the northern portion of the state. The Detroit Free Press on Wednesday published short profiles of what is known about them, noting that at least 4 own guns. During the trial, prosecutors presented hundreds of hours of recordings from informants, videos, and testimony from 2 men who had already pled guilty in the case. The government contended the men, all militia members, were fed up with the Whitmer COVID-19 orders and plotted to kidnap her from her vacation home in northern Michigan and blow up a bridge in order to delay a police response. But defense attorneys say the men had no intention of carrying out any plot and instead were egged on by FBI informants. The defense portrayed the men as stoners who talked tough but were incapable of executing such a scheme. The government presented evidence showing surveillance of Whitmer's second home, but the 2 men were acquitted. Harris and Caserta did not participate in it. Caserta's attorney, Michael Hill, told reporters his client never agreed to kidnap the governor and said the government had no proof despite hundreds of hours of secret recordings. Quote, "When did he agree? He never did," Hill said outside the federal courthouse on Friday. Hill was the only defendant to testify and said he did not agree to kidnap the governor. Fox's attorney, Chris Gibbons, said after the decision he is ready to try the case again and said the acquittals of Harris and Caserta showed, quote, "the serious shortcomings," and close quote, of the case. Michael Bellotta, a former federal prosecutor now working as a defense attorney, said prosecutors had a glaring problem. There was never a date or a specific plan to commit the crime. That was a, quote, impossibly high hurdle, end close quote, for jurors, even though Jonker instructed them that a practical plan wasn't necessary for conviction. Quote, the governor was not kidnapped. She was never harmed, end close quote, said Bellotta, adding, quote, the jury was left to guess, were they really going to go through with it, end close quote. Bellotta was one of the lead prosecutors in the corruption trial that ended with the conviction of former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick in 2013. He suggests federal agents could have waited longer for more concrete evidence, like setting up a specific date for the events, but he said he understood why they were also concerned about the governor's safety. Following the verdict, Whitmer's chief of staff, Ann Holes, released a statement saying, quote, Michiganders and Americans, especially our children, are living through the normalization of political violence. The plot to kidnap and kill a governor may seem like an anomaly, but we must be honest about what it really is, the result of violent, divisive rhetoric that is all too common across our country. There must be accountability and consequences for those who commit heinous crimes. Without accountability, extremists will be emboldened, Holes said. The alleged plot was revealed when the men were arrested in October of 2020. For months, there have been protests in Michigan over Whitmer's COVID-19 policies enacted to lessen infections and reduce deaths, but which angered many unhappy with restrictions on businesses and individuals. There were several protests, including one on April 30th, 2020, in which armed militia members entered the Lansing Capitol building. The case was viewed as a test of the federal government's ability to combat what some view as an increase in right-wing extremism. Susan Cork, director of the Southern Poverty Law Center's Intelligence Project, issued a statement saying that, quote, justice was not served, end close quote, and that, quote, actions of this kind are a direct attack on our democracy, end closed quote. Also making headlines on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus from the Detroit Free Press, Michigan gas prices are averaging below $4 for the first time in nearly 5 weeks. Some good news, especially for those with a long commute. Gas prices in Michigan decreased 9 cents a gallon compared to last week, according to AAA of Michigan. Michigan drivers are paying on average $3.95 per gallon for regular unleaded gasoline. That's 31 cents less than this time in March, but still $1.16 more than in April of last year. And the state average is below $4 for the first time in 5 weeks, according to AAA. Motorists are paying on average about $59 for a full 15-gallon tank of gasoline, an increase of about $8 in prices from November of 2021. Quote, motorists are seeing some slight relief at the pump as Michigan gas prices fall below $4 a gallon for the first time in almost 5 weeks, said Adrian Woodland, spokesperson at AAA, the auto club group, said in a news release. Quote, if crude oil prices continue to decline, it's likely that pump prices will follow suit, end closed quote. Compared to last week, Metro Detroit's average daily gas prices decreased. Metro Detroit's current average price is $3.99 per gallon. This price is 11 cents less than last week's average, but again, still $1.16 more than this time last year. The most expensive gas prices on average in Michigan are in Traverse City at $4.17, Marquette at $4.15 a gallon, and Ann Arbor at $4.03 per gallon. The least expensive gas prices in Michigan at this time are in Grand Rapids and Lansing, both at $3.87 per gallon, and in Saginaw at $3.88. A search on GasBuddy.com shows that 2 gas stations with the lowest price of $3.53 per gallon as of this morning at 9:15. Shell at 31324 10 Mile Road in Farmington Hills, and Sam's Club at 27300 Wixom Road in Novi. Lastly, making headlines at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. This is from the Detroit News. Let the Maine remain. Fans rallied to save the revered Royal Oak Theater over the weekend. A lively rally drew at least 100 people to downtown Royal Oak on Saturday amid efforts to save the popular Maine Art Theater from a possible wrecking ball. Royal Oak residents and other fans braved chilly temperatures to show their support for the venerable theater and drum up support from others. Many carried colorful signs that read, "Let the Maine remain," And, quote, exposure to art is important as the Detroit Party marching band kept the spirits high, prompting passersby to honk their horns in a show of support. Quote, we have to do everything possible to keep this theater preserved, said Jason Krasiak, president of the Friends of the Main Art organization, to the crowd. Quote, we love this theater. We love the memories, and closed quote. The popular 81-year-old theater at 11 Mile and Main may be replaced by offices, retail, and residences. They were a proposal by A.F. Jonah for a 5-story multi-use development at the Main Art site will go before the city's planning department for consideration on Tuesday of this week. Friends of the Main Art, formed in June, wants to lease and manage the Art Deco-inspired movie house through a nonprofit, community-based business model, Krasiak said. Quote, we want to run it, said Krasiak on Saturday, saying, quote, we should be running it, and closed quote. Demolishing the theater would be, quote unquote, detrimental to the city, said Krasiak, saying building condominiums on the property does not provide improvement to the city, it does not enhance the surviving properties, and it doesn't foster walkability, and closed quote. The Main Art Theater had a huge draw as a boutique-type movie house offering art films and independent cinema, as well as cult films shown on Friday and Saturday nights before it was closed last summer. Prior to the early 90s, the theater showed commercial and other conventional-type movies and films as well. After going dark for last summer, the marquee read, quote, landlord kicked us out. It's been a fun ride. R.I.P. 1941 to 2021. Krasiak said, while the owners of the theater are asking $5 million, the Friends of the Main Art would like to lease the theater to keep it standing. Krasiak said his group has asked Democratic U.S. Representative Andy Levin to help look for federal grants and other funding if the Friends of the Main Art are successful in getting the theater's owners to go along with the leasing plan. Quote, there's a win-win solution here, Krasiak said on Saturday. Quote, beyond the historic and cultural significance, and we think it is significant, there would be an economic impact of a demolition, which is going to be detrimental to the city of Royal Oak, and closed quote. Levin attended Saturday's rally and made brief remarks pledging his support for the group, saying, quote, I want to play a helpful role in keeping art in downtown Royal Oak. I love this place, Levin told the protesters. Jessica Boltman, who watched movies such as the popular documentary Bowling for Columbine at the theater while she was in high school, said the theater, quote, has a special place in my heart, and I want to see this place thrive, and closed quote. Nancy Greenia, a Royal Oak resident, said she was the longtime patron of the theater, saying, quote, we need a variety of arts and entertainment, and closed quote. Royal Oak resident Reynolds Sataki said tearing down the theater would not only destroy a historic building, but be, quote, another victory for the big money crowd that finances more modern, commercialized theaters. Royal Oak's City Planning Department is scheduled to discuss the future of the Main Art Theater at 7 p.m. on Tuesday at City Hall. Friends of the Main Art is encouraging Royal Oak residents to email the city's planning commission and urge members not to approve demolition of the theater. Krasiak said a lawsuit to stop demolition would be, quote, the worst case scenario, and closed quote. All those articles on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, as well as those ever helpful links to accurate expert information on COVID-19 from the CDC, the MDHHS, and the Oakland County Health Division. We have a great program ahead on this Monday edition of the Oakland County Megacast. Coming up next, we'll speak with Dr. Scott Tiegs, professor of biological sciences at Oakland University, followed by mixed media artist Michelle Sider at 10:40 a.m. That's all up next. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Neighborhood storm drains carry water directly to local creeks and streams. No filters, no treatment.
Storm drains also help reduce street flooding when it rains.
So clearing storm drains and the areas nearby of trash and leaves helps keep them for rain only.
It is easy to do your part by adopting a storm drain.
Find a storm drain, check it, and clear it every month.
So keep storm drains for rain only.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect. We may come from different organizations,
But we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Neighborhood storm drains carry water directly to local creeks and streams. No filters, no treatment.
storm drains also help reduce street flooding when it rains.
So clearing storm drains and the areas nearby of trash and leaves helps keep them for rain only.
It is easy to do your part by adopting a storm drain.
Find a storm drain, check it, and clear it every month.
So keep storm drains for rain only.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM.
We as Michiganders feel connected to this resource in a way that I think is really powerful.
Conservation starts with a caring, committed community.
For me, it's peaceful to have a relationship with the river.
Every single one of us has a role to make sure that those waterways stay safe and healthy, being careful about what goes down the storm drain.
Just even eliminating some of your single-use plastic makes a difference.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Did you know that nearly 3.31 million Americans don't get their annual checkup? Going to the doctor regularly is extremely important and is a crucial factor in maintaining good health. Make sure you are visiting your local doctor often and telling them about any health concerns you have. For more information, contact your local healthcare provider. This message is brought to you by WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lakes FM.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. Learn more about the program by visiting civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you will find information on our entire network of stations all across the Oakland County area. At Oakland University, one biological sciences professor and his team has joined a worldwide effort to research the production of greenhouse gases in a variety of different ecosystems all across the globe. Dr. Scott Tiegs joins us now on the Megacast to talk about that collaborative research and more. Dr. Tiegs, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Appreciate you being here. Can you first tell us about your background and how you first became interested in biology and studying various different biological concepts?
Yeah, I'm an aquatic ecologist at OU. That means I study a bunch of different types of aquatic ecosystems, whether they be freshwater, marine, lakes, streams, rivers, etc. And gosh, how did I get interested in that? I guess it's something I've been interested in my whole life. Ever since I was a little kid, I've been fascinated by aquatic ecosystems. So I feel pretty fortunate that I get to continue that into my career.
So you and a team of other biological scientists at Oakland University have joined a worldwide effort to research the impact of certain ecosystems, particularly aquatic ecosystems, on the emissions of greenhouse gases all across the world in a variety of different places. It's you and 150 researchers involved in this project. Can you tell us what the research that you did was focusing on, what those specific focuses were, and what were some of the interesting findings of that research that not only spanned Oakland University, but all across the globe?
Yeah, well, I think when most people think of greenhouse gas emissions, and we're talking about things like carbon dioxide, methane, I think they tend to think of things that might come out of a smokestack or a tailpipe of a car. But natural ecosystems, reservoirs, lakes, our global ocean, et cetera, they emit a lot of these greenhouse gases as well. And human beings are increasingly impacting these environments in ways that exacerbate that phenomenon. And so that was the focus of this research, is to understand sort of the global landscape as far as greenhouse emissions go for aquatic ecosystems.
So in an ideal natural sense, just how significant of a production of greenhouse gases should our aquatic ecosystems be producing? And then on top of that, what exactly is the man-made impact of greenhouse gas emissions, particularly from our waterways?
Yeah, that's a great series of questions, and ones that we're still wrestling to tackle to this day. It's not easy to estimate the fluxes of greenhouse gases that come from aquatic ecosystems, and there's new estimates that come out all the time, and they tend to be greater and greater than the prior estimates. So it seems as though in the past we've really underestimated the role of aquatic ecosystems in releasing greenhouse gases, and the more we study them, the more we realize just how much CO2 and methane in particular can come from these systems, especially when they're impacted by human activities. You had asked for an amount of CO2 and methane and other greenhouse gases that come out of aquatic ecosystems. I don't have a ready number for that, but I can say that there's about 1 billion tons of carbon, for example, that are transported by rivers to our global ocean. And the fate of that carbon, whether it gets blown off back to the atmosphere as CO2 or enters long-term storage compartments deep in marine sediments, for example, really depends on how quickly that organic matter decomposes. So if it decomposes very, very slowly, there's a greater chance that it's going to enter one of these long-term storage compartments sequestered in marine sediments. And if it decomposes really, really quickly because of, say, warmer waters or more nutrient-rich waters, though that material, that organic matter, goes right back to the atmosphere as CO2 or methane.
Are there certain bodies of water that tend to have a more, let's say, problematic or more significant, is probably a better word for it, significant output of greenhouse gases, particularly carbon, in that decomposition process? Are there certain bodies that are more significant in their output than others?
Yeah, man-made reservoirs are hot spots for greenhouse gas emissions. I read a paper just the other day. It was from some work done in South America, and they had estimated that the amount of CO2 emissions that would come from this reservoir that was designed to provide hydropower for local communities, that community would be better off burning coal rather than having this reservoir in place, just to give you an idea of the magnitude of greenhouse gases that can come from these reservoirs. So it can be pretty significant. And man-made reservoirs are very effective at retaining organic matter and converting it to greenhouse gases.
And that decomposition that does occur in these waterways, especially in those man-made reservoirs that do have so many different nutrients and other chemicals that are mixing into those waterways and maybe even accelerating that rate of decomposition, just how much of a greater impact do those certain waterways and the different chemicals and different nutrients that are combining in those waterways in particular have in comparison to other more natural waterways that still undergo decomposition and still emit greenhouse gases, but not nearly at that rapid of a rate?
Yeah, it's not uncommon for us to see a doubling or even tripling of organic matter processing rates in the context of human impacts. And really what I'm talking about here is nutrient loading, things like nitrogen and phosphorus, that are very common nutrients that are needed by all life, but we're adding to landscapes in excess in the form of fertilizers in particular, whether it be in our lawns or in more agricultural contexts. And this is leading to a lot of problems for aquatic ecosystems around the world. Probably most notably, most locally, would be the western basin of Lake Erie, which now has these toxic algal blooms almost every summer. And that's due almost entirely to warming and nutrient loading into that system. And that can really exacerbate this problem of more rapid decomposition as well.
So you would think that, so a layman would think that, okay, these algal blooms can't be too bad for these different waterways because it's more plant life in the waterways. That it's able to soak up these nutrients, and theoretically, in the layman's mind, that would distribute some of these nutrients more efficiently than maybe just having them be decomposing specifically in these waterways and emitting those gases. But then is that layman's idea of what may be good for a natural waterway flawed because that plant life may be actually producing more of these gases?
Yeah, so we're talking about algae here is what you're talking about. It's not a plant, it's a microorganism, but it functions like a plant in that it photosynthesizes, sequesters carbon, et cetera. And when you add nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus into an aquatic ecosystem, you can really sort of push that system beyond its natural capacity to have a normal, regular, healthy abundance of algae. We absolutely need algae on our planet. We couldn't live without it. But when you take a boat trip on western basin of Lake Erie now in this late, the late summer, July, August, it's like pea soup. I mean, it's incredible. I've never seen such a strong biotic reaction from adding a relatively small amount of nutrients to that system. So there's much more abundant algal blooms in that system than there ever have been historically. And that creates all sorts of problems for that system, especially when we're talking about nuisance algae like microcystis, which produces a neurotoxin called microcystin. So even though, yes, algae provides some goods and services that we need, it can be pushed beyond a range of variability, after which point it can become even problematic for human health. You certainly don't want to be drinking that water that has those algal blooms in it.
So you talk about a small addition of nutrients to these different aquatic ecosystems, and the impact that can have on emissions. Just how small of an addition of nutrients beyond the natural capacity can then trigger some of these significant impacts on the emissions of carbon and other greenhouse gases from these various waterways?
Yeah, so when we're talking about normal quantities of nitrogen and phosphorus in the system, we're usually talking about like micrograms per liter, and quite incredibly small quantities of nitrogen and phosphorus that are needed to maintain these ecosystems in a healthy functioning state. But we see orders of magnitude greater concentrations of that now. And those are much higher concentrations, but it's still worth keeping in mind this is kind of a small quantity of stuff given this incredible bioreaction that you're getting to it. And I think that's what's hard for people to get their head around sometimes, how you can sprinkle just a little bit of nutrients in a pond or a lake and get such a dramatic response. It's just easy for people's minds to dismiss this as a meaningful quantity of material that we've added to a lake. It couldn't possibly have such a dramatic effect. But in fact, just a little bit of nutrient addition to a natural ecosystem like that can have a profound influence on its productivity.
We're joined by Dr. Scott Tiegs, a professor of biological sciences at Oakland University, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast, one of over 150 researchers throughout the world that have been joining together to research the impact of certain aquatic ecosystems on greenhouse gas emissions worldwide. So as I mentioned, over 150 researchers across the globe, not just at Oakland University, but at places all throughout the U.S. and all around the world. How did this group of researchers in this field come together for this research, and then why come together for such great collaboration on a very specific topic?
Yeah, it was really a great collaboration. Well, I guess it came from the idea that most of what we know about organic matter decomposition and really aquatic systems in general comes from a small number of parts in the world, mostly North America, Europe, Australia, what we would call the developed world. And so there's huge knowledge gaps in how what we know about other systems, whether they be in the tropics, in the rainforest, tropical dry forest, et cetera. So what we did, and this is something that we spearheaded at OU, was develop this decomposition assay that we could essentially mail to people just with ordinary post. They've got a little assay that they can get in the mail and deploy that in their local stream or river, send the samples back to my lab, and we process them, and then we can understand how their ecosystem functions. So it was really this assay that enabled this global project. We ended up getting data from, I think, 550 streams around the world, which is pretty unprecedented in its scope in terms of a manipulative field experiment like that. So that's how this was enabled. And I put together the network just through professional contacts, social media, word of mouth, email chains, et cetera. And there was really great enthusiasm for doing this because people are starting to value the role of organic matter processing in maintaining these healthy ecosystems.
So you and your team of researchers worked in the OU Biological Preserve in order to develop methods to monitor the rate in which carbon breaks down in some of these waterways, and particularly such as rivers. You use cotton as an organic material to help measure that breakdown of carbon. What was the choice? What was the motivation behind using cotton as one of those methods of tracking that breakdown of carbon?
Yeah, well, the main reason was that we could readily standardize that material. Of course, it's widely produced. by the textile industry. So we were able to get standardized strips of cotton. We make them in a very standardized fashion. They're just, just bits of cotton like this. It's not so different than you would make blue jeans from. They're 27 threads wide, super standardized. And we developed this assay on our biological preserve at Oakland University. We're really lucky here to have 110 acres that we've devoted for maintaining as a natural area, as a place that we can go do research. And it was because we have that on campus that it was really convenient, useful, and had a lot of utility in helping develop the assay that we could then export to different ecosystems around the world. And so why do we choose cotton? Another reason is that it consists of about 95% cellulose, which is the most organic polymer on Earth, right? So about half of the world's biomass is made up of cellulose. And so it's really important and relevant for global biogeochemical cycling. The decomposition of the cellulose is an important source of greenhouse gas emissions in natural systems. So it made a lot of sense for us to use it in that assay.
We're joined by Dr. Scott Tiegs, a professor of biological sciences at Oakland University, who has led an effort among over 150 researchers across the globe to research the impact of greenhouse gas emissions on our local waterways through those waterways. In your research, a lot of what we've talked about so far about this effort has been on the impact of greater output of emissions from these natural waterways and from man-made waterways as well. But your research also references dead zones, particularly in downstream lake and marine ecosystems. Can you talk about dead zones, what causes them, and what they mean for these aquatic ecosystems in the short term and in the long term of maintaining these ecosystems?
Yeah, so we have these what are called dead zones in downstream ecosystems like, say, the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of California, and even in the western basin of Lake Erie, like I referenced. So what happens is when we add a lot of nutrients to an aquatic ecosystem, it's really fertile conditions for these algal blooms that I mentioned before. So during the growing season, with the onset of summer, things warm up, longer day lengths, lots and lots of sunlight. You can get this really thick algal soup. But that's a short-term lived phenomenon. Eventually, those algae, as that water cools off, as fall ensues, they start to die, and as they die, they decompose and they settle to the bottom of the lake. And this is problematic because that process consumes oxygen. And this is really the essence of what constitutes these dead zones. In the absence of oxygen, there's a lot of organisms that cannot live in that. So fish, crabs, shellfish, etc., important animals for fisheries around the world, they can be wiped out by these areas of low oxygen that are caused by these algal blooms that are in turn caused by this nutrient loading that we mentioned before.
So Dr. Tiegs, all these impacts on our waterways, from the increased input of nutrients and chemicals into these waterways, and of course that leading to the increased output of greenhouse gases, particularly carbon. Is there anything that we can do locally here in the Oakland County area, but certainly globally in a variety of different aquatic ecosystems, to mitigate those effects or even reverse some of those effects that these greater emissions are having on our waterways?
Yeah, well, we can reduce the quantity of nutrients that are entering our aquatic ecosystems. And obviously the easiest thing would be to do is just to stop fertilizing. You know, I know a lot of people who have just simply stopped fertilizing their yards. Urban landscapes are important sources of nutrients, and this is primarily to do with people putting fertilizer on their yards and nitrogen and phosphorus. It can be done without that. That's really optional. As far as agriculture, it can be applied less. There's processes like no-till agriculture during the off-season that can reduce nutrient loading into streams. There's different restoration activities that can be done that can reduce the delivery of nutrient delivery to downstream ecosystem. So there are some measures to do that, and they're being employed increasingly to mitigate this global problem.
Dr. Tiegs, before we let you go, what's next in this research effort? Are there more plans to expand this out further across the global scientific community, or what is the ultimate goal of this research effort to ultimately teach the world about greenhouse gas emissions, particularly from our waterways?
Yeah, well, we've had 2 important papers come out of this so far, and those were mostly done in relatively unimpacted ecosystems, what we would call, pristine systems that don't have a lot of human impacts. And so I'd like to now move our network and this assay into agricultural and urban landscapes around the world to better understand how those streams and rivers function. I think the way our rivers function here in say, Southeast Michigan, our environmental stressors that we impose on aquatic ecosystems are very different than those that might be imposed in, say, the developing world. For example, we use a lot of rock salt that makes its way into streams and rivers. In places that don't have winters, that's not an important environmental stressor. Other things are. So we're going to take this, again, on a global scale and move it into urban and agricultural systems. That's our key next step.
Dr. Tiegs, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Appreciate it. We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast, and on the other side, we'll explore art of many different mediums with mixed media artist Michelle Sider. That's up next. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Most of the pollution that goes into our rivers is carried by rainwater that flows off of roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
The leaves and bark of a single tree can retain a surprising amount of rainwater. Depending on its size and species, it could be 100 gallons or more.
It is estimated that an urban forest can reduce annual runoff by up to 7%.
Here's one thing that we know can help keep our water clean.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior. These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance. They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different. One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games? Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's a second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. To learn more about the Oakland County Megacast and the Michigan Megacast by visiting our website at civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll learn more information about the program, including all of our partnering television and radio stations all throughout Oakland County, and find all of our programs, both our full episodes and each individual interview, on demand as well. Just visit our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, or civiccentertv.com. At the top of the page, click on our Megacast link, where you'll find all that information right there at your disposal. We're pleased to be joined now by a mixed media artist, Michelle Sider, whose current works you can find over at the Janice Carrick Gallery in West Bloomfield Township. Michelle, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to speak with you.
And glad to have you with us. First, can you tell us about your background and kind of how you got into these forms of art that you produce, and what drew you to it as a career?
Well, I've always been creative. My mom tells a story that as an infant, I was playing with the sunbeams that came through the window. So and she helped to encourage me. And my aunt was an artist, among other things. So I had some great examples. But it was really my high school art teacher who said to me that I should consider going into art as a profession. And I hadn't really considered it seriously until then. So I have her to thank, Mrs. Benson. And I went to art school at University of Michigan, and I was mainly a painter. I've been a painter for many, many years. And then I had a little circuitous route. I became a psychologist and used art therapy, art teacher, and now I'm doing my art full-time. But when I started back 7 years ago to do my art full-time, I really switched from painting to glass mosaic. And it is a medium that I just love. I love the glass. I have some of it behind me. You can see some of it reflecting. There's different types of glass that reflect in different ways, and you can put it in at different angles. And I'm having a whole lot of fun incorporating my painting background with a whole new medium. And kind of doing this a little later in life, I have some things to say that I wouldn't have wanted to, or didn't have in mind to say when I was working, when I was younger.
So you began your journey as an artist as a painter, and now you're doing work more with glass art. And I see the works behind you. For those that are listening on the radio, highly encourage you to go to civiccentertv.com/megacast later on in the day and view this. You can see some of Michelle's work behind her in the background of her interview. These glass works, you said that behind you, this is all glass, correct?
Correct.
And
yeah.
So they look like paintings. They're made of glass, but they look like paintings. And you're labeled as a mixed media mosaic artist. Can you give us a little bit of insight in what that means to be a mixed media artist and create art that looks and is of a variety of different art forms?
Well, as I said, I started out as a painter, and the works that mixed media to me now, I'm still painting a bit, but I'm mainly doing glass mosaic. And the reason why I say mixed media is because I am incorporating a whole bunch of different things into the works. So for those people who can see, behind me, I have one of my recent series which, on the side of the road, where I am collecting and using different things that I've collected from the side of the road, such as bicycle gears and pieces of metal and things like that, rocks, and incorporating it in with the glass. It's mainly glass that I'm using, but the other piece to the other side of me, which is another series I'm doing, has a handmade jewelry. I've been researching and creating handmade jewelry that is going into these pieces that tell some historical information. So mixed media is, I'm kind of having fun discovering different types of glass from all over the world. Some are chunky and thick, and some are iridized, and I place them in at different angles to create different effects. So I'm actually not just showing light in my pieces, but I'm actually creating light by the angles in which I place the different pieces to see and have something fun that changes color throughout the day. And it's really a fun experience to look at. And my painting background, you can see, I actually, underneath each one of my mosaics is a fully realized painting. I spend a lot of time drawing and painting and figuring out what I'm going to do before I start. So yeah, I'm incorporating a lot of different aspects from my background into my pieces now.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see these because, as I mentioned earlier, they do look like paintings. They're made of glass, and now that you mentioned that you have actual paintings behind them, the glass element of it does give it a certain depth and a certain three-dimensional nature to it that really adds to these pieces. How much of an impact has your painting background had, or an influence has that had on the composition, particularly, of your glass pieces?
It's huge, actually. Actually, I'm going to be teaching a class online about it soon. It is a big part. I really thank my classical instructors for learning about composition and value and color theory and how to direct somebody's eye to a certain part of a piece. One example I use, a lot of people are familiar with Vermeer's painting of the woman with the pearl earring, where that's what everybody looks at is the pearl earring, because he's created a focal point that's bright for the pearl and everything else around it is dark. So the idea is that as an artist, you can actually lead the viewer's eye to where you want them to look and what you want them to see, and actually how you want them to, hopefully, expressing an idea and a feeling through the colors, through the composition. So it's for me, it's critical in how I put these pieces together. And then the fun, it's kind of another fun added experience of then creating that imagery with glass. And the glass is not transparent, it's actually opaque. And the colors are very, very rich.
And so you can see a lot of Michelle's work at the 4th Annual Michigan Regional Glass Exhibition. That is at the Janice Carrick Gallery in West Bloomfield. That's on the campus of the Jewish Community Center on Drake Road in West Bloomfield Township. That's running now through May 18th over there at the Janice Carrick Gallery. Now through May 18th, the 4th Annual Michigan Regional Glass Exhibition. Can you tell us about some of the pieces that you have on site there at the Janice Carrick Gallery that are part of this exhibition, and what were some of the choices that you made behind putting those certain pieces in this exhibition?
Well, first of all, I'm very excited to be in the exhibition. I'm among 52 glass artists, and I'm honored to be the only glass mosaic artist in the group. There's a lot of a variety of different things that each artist is doing something very different with glass. So it's really an interesting show, and there's great light in the gallery, so you can see it really well. The pieces that I have in the show are from my On the Side of the Road series, which is really, I think, a really cool series, which was inspired, as everybody can relate to the condition of Michigan roads with potholes and cracks. I had an experience where I was riding my bicycle and I had to look down so I wouldn't hit a pothole or go into a crack and get hurt. And while I was looking down, I noticed that the cracks in the cement and the cracks in the concrete and the sides of the asphalt created really interesting composition and designs with the cracks themselves. So I got all excited as an artist. I hop off my bike. I started taking photos of these different abstract patterns. I went back into my studio and started drawing and painting, and eventually made some glass mosaic pieces that show my view from the side of the road as I'm looking down, and these kind of it's a cool abstract patterns. So the pieces in the show are abstract, but if you look and understand that it's from the seat of my bicycle, you can kind of see that you're kind of looking down a perspective a little bit down a road, and with all sorts of interesting, there's rocks, there's beads, there's glass, there's different materials in them that are reflective and interesting. And for the people who can see on TV right now, the piece behind me actually has the bicycle gears and chains and rocks and different things in there that are it's fun and very abstract, fun series. But making a commentary about our state of our infrastructure.
We're joined by mixed media mosaic artist Michelle Sider on the Oakland County Megacast. Her work on display among the art of 51 other glass artists at the Janice Carrick Gallery in West Bloomfield Township now through May 18th of this year. You can learn more information by visiting gallery.jccdet.org. Gallery.jccdet.org for their hours of operation and to learn more about Michelle and the 51 other artists on display at the 4th Michigan Regional Glass Exhibition over there at the Janice Carrick Gallery, running now through May 18th of this year. And so, Michelle, you had mentioned earlier that you were at one point in your career an art teacher. You were also a kid that grew up enjoying art and loving art and were inspired by an art teacher in your youth to go into art as a career. For those parents out there right now that have kids that are really interested in art and have taken that up as a passion of theirs and maybe considering it as a career, what advice do you have for them on what their kids can do and what the parents can do too to inspire their kids and prepare them for a career potentially as an artist?
Great question. The first thing I want to say is if you notice that your kid is creative or maybe doesn't think like everybody else around them, a lot of creative people think differently. They have different points of view. Encourage it. Encourage it so much. And art is a viable career. I'd love to get rid of the old and not true idea of the starving artist. It's not true. We have a world right now that's so visual. Everything, people are on screens. There's videos, there's art, there's music, there's dance, all these different creative art forms. They're hot and you can have a great career in it. And I would like to encourage parents to think that way, because as an art teacher, I know that some parents were out of love and concern for their kids. Well, they wanted to have something more practical to go into rather than art. And I would say encourage your kid. If they have passion, oh, that's the best thing. If you can have a career in something that you love, you are a lucky person. And I would encourage people to look in their communities. So they're maybe even ask if you have an art teacher or teachers at the school, who's in the community that's teaching art. And even if you can't do that or you can't afford to do that, create a corner in the kitchen where your child can sit down and get a little messy and play. And you don't even have to buy expensive materials. Literally, you could take the leftover water from coffee and use that with a brush and paint with that. You can take the charcoal that's left over from if you had a fire in the backyard, not a real, but a fire, cooking marshmallows or something. The leftover charcoal is a medium that people have used as an art tool for thousands of years. So there's things around you that you can use and just encourage them. And of course, there are after school activities and programs. So look them up. That's what my mom did. And I was so grateful for that. I was involved in some after school art programs and I loved it. It was my favorite part of the day and really encouraged me to become an artist. And those art teachers out there, God bless you. You're helping people find real viable careers and something exciting.
You're listening to your radio homes for the Megacast, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. We're joined by Michelle Sider, a mixed media mosaic artist, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. Her art on display among the art of 51 other glass artists at the Janice Carrick Gallery in West Bloomfield Township, now through May 18th. Janice Carrick Gallery is on the campus of the Jewish Community Center, located on Drake Road in West Bloomfield. More information on their website, gallery.jccdet.org. That's gallery.jccdet.org. Michelle, in 2017, you and Rabbi Joseph Krakoff published a book called Never Enough Time, aimed at helping children grieving with the loss of a loved one. Can you talk about that particular book? What went into your collaboration with the rabbi, and what was kind of the story behind initiating the production of this book?
Thank you for asking. The book is called Never Long Enough. And it is actually a beautiful book that helps people deal with the loss of a loved one or the grieving process. And we both came to it from different points of view, and it's a beautiful collaboration. And just in a wider sense, I want to say that while my partner is a rabbi and I'm also Jewish, that this book is not a Jewish book. It's not a religious book at all. It cuts across race, religion, sexual orientation, anything that we could use to divide ourselves in society. This cuts across all of it. It deals with loving somebody, and if you are losing somebody or lost somebody, the pain and the grief involved, and that cuts across all social class and everything. And it's a beautiful book that basically is prose, a poem broken down to different ideas, and each page has an original drawing or painting that takes you slows you down and takes you through some different ideas to help you really honor the grieving process, to help you then move forward. And it's not a how-to book. It's actually just a really beautiful book that's very, I feel like it's very sensitively done. We took 3 years to create it and thought very carefully about every single detail that went into it. And people can go through slowly and with loved ones to read the different beautiful ideas in the book. And it starts out black and white, and it ends up in full color paintings, to the idea of going through the grieving process and then to hope at the end. The way it first started was Rabbi Krakoff was looking for somebody to illustrate some of his poetry. He's very talented and has a number of poems. I read his poem. He came to me and I read his poems, and this one poem in particular really struck me for a lot of different reasons. It's beautiful. I said, oh my goodness, we have to do something with this poem. So it was basically this one beautiful poem about loss that we focused on and then rewrote and created into a book. And at the end of the book, we have empty pages for people to write down their feelings. And feedback that we've gotten from people is that they've really used it almost as a journal or as a diary to talk about their loved ones and their relationship. And we actually created a sequel, which is a coloring book / workbook around the same poem, the same ideas, but we've expanded it. And we have some prompt questions, more blank pages, but it's also a coloring book so that a caregiver and somebody who's ill or family members after someone who has died can come together and color and talk about their loved ones, write down their ideas. And it really becomes a very valuable way to, for the grieving process and to really honor your loved one.
Michelle, before we let you go, if people would like to obtain a copy of Never Long Enough or see any of your other work, where can they find you online, on your website and on social media?
Thanks for asking. So I do have a website. It's my name, Michelle, Michelle, S studio.com. So it's michellesstudio.com is where you can see my work. And the book has its own website. It's called neverlongenough.net. So you can purchase books straight from the website there. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. My name is Michelle Sider, with like apple cider, but with an S. You can find my work online.
More information about the 4th Michigan Regional Glass Exhibition, which is going on now through May 18th, and features Michelle's works at the Janice Carrick Gallery in West Bloomfield Township on their website, gallery.jccdet.org. You can learn more about Michelle by visiting her website, michellesstudio.com, and learn more and obtain Never Long Enough by visiting neverlongenough.net. Michelle, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll take a quick break here on the Megacast. On the other side, we'll be joined by the Love Doctor, Dr. Terri Orbuch, to talking to your kids about love and much more. That's up next. This is the Megacast.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
or the Huron River Watershed Council,
we work together to protect water resources for everyone.
Most of the pollution entering our rivers is carried by rainwater that runs off roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
A rain garden helps catch stormwater runoff.
Rain gardens and their plants help dirty runoff soak into the ground.
You can do your part to help keep our water clean.
Learn about rain gardens and native plants.
So consider a rain garden in your home landscaping.
Catch the runoff with a rain garden.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. You know, being 27 and a mom and a wife and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
Welcome to the Michigan Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. To learn more about the program by visiting our website at civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find information on our entire network of stations, including My Michigan TV, otherwise known as My. Many adults have a tough time understanding love, and it can often be even tougher of a concept to understand as a child. But having conversations with your kids about love can play a key role in ensuring that they understand healthy relationships and develop strong boundaries. Joining us now is a distinguished professor of sociology at Oakland University, and is known commonly as the Love Doctor. Dr. Terri Orbuch joins us now on the Michigan Megacast. Dr. Orbuch, thank you for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So first, tell us a little bit about your background and why you're known as the Love Doctor.
Well, as you said, Tyler, I'm a distinguished professor at Oakland University. I'm a therapist and a relationship coach. I'm also the director of a long-term research project where I've been following the same couples now for over 34 years. And as the Love Doctor, I'm bringing my science, my research, as well as others' research to the public in accessible ways so that people can implement that great science-based information into their lives.
So how can the science that you are researching, the sociological side of human behavior, the anthropological side of human behavior that plays a key factor in love relationships, how does that help you ultimately impact these relationships of the people that you are coaching and of those that you are researching and aiding their relationships over time?
Well, lots of relationship advice out there is based on individuals' personal experience, or as a therapist, let's say clinical experience. But when you use science, you know that it's general information that can really help and benefit your relationships, because we're talking about researchers like myself who have looked at lots of couples, lots of individuals over time, and you know that the information can be generalized to you and your relationships. So it's good science that can help you improve your own relationships as well as the relationships of your children.
We so often hear about the impact that parents' relationships can have on their kids, but don't normally talk about the flip side of that, where a kid's relationship, whether they're a teenager or they're an adult child of their parents, can have an impact on their parents and their familial relationship as well. You recently wrote a book called Secrets to Surviving Your Children's Love Relationships. Briefly, what is that book about, and what motivated you to write about this perspective of relationships?
Well, as parents, Tyler, we want the best for our children. And one of the things that we can give our children is science-based information about how relationships work and what is important to a happy, healthy relationships. Because relationships, healthy relationships, are so important to individuals' health and well-being, both physically, mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. So when our kids are happy and healthy in their relationships, that's going to benefit us and help us, and we're going to feel better because our kids are happy and healthy. So I wrote this book because as parents, we set the tone for how our kids act in relationships, feel about relationships, and the relationship skills they have to build happy, healthy relationships. I heard from parents all over the United States that they don't know how to start the important conversations with their children, and they don't know what's important to a happy, healthy relationship. So as parents, we have the responsibility not only to model healthy relationships in our own lives, but talk to our kids about relationships in general.
Especially with teenage kids, it can be really uncomfortable, particularly for the kids, but also I would imagine for the parents approaching their kids to have those conversations and check in with them on their romantic relationships. And so what sort of advice do you give to parents to initiate those conversations, to maintain those conversations and help guide their kids through these romantic relationships that for many of them may be the first time that they're engaging in these kinds of relationships in their lives?
Well, good question. First, I think it is challenging. It is difficult for parents to approach their kids and start talking about relationship. It's not easy. So the first piece of information that I have or advice that I have is to know that it is going to be difficult and challenging and have that expectation. Second, it's important to build trust with your child or children. And when we trust, our kids are going to be more likely to share and to come to us when they're experiencing a heartbreak, when they have issues in a relationship, and that's what we want. So start setting that groundwork with them early. Talk to them, share experiences of your own relationships. Talk to them about television shows or books that you're reading, and use the characters in the movie, the sitcoms, the television shows to talk about relationships. And then finally, start the important discussions and don't judge. Don't lecture, don't tell them what to do, but ask questions so that they can have the epiphany, so that they can understand or have answers. Don't tell them what to feel, but lead them down a path so that you get the answers that you want. And that's a really interesting situation, Tyler. We don't want to lecture, but we want to ask questions so our kids then come up with the answers.
We're joined by the Love Doctor, Dr. Terri Orbuch, a distinguished professor of sociology at Oakland University and the author of Secrets to Surviving Your Children's Love Relationships. And Dr. Orbuch, throughout the book, you mention multiple times good relationships with your for your children start with you. What do you mean by that, and just how great of an impact can a parent's influence on their kids have on their kids' relationships, the longevity of the relationships, and certainly the quality and the health of that relationship?
Well, we as parents have a huge impact. We set the tone, we give them the relationship skills, information, and they're watching us. So they're watching all of our relationships first. So the relationship that we have with the barista at the coffee shop, with our partner, our love partner or spouse, their parent, with our other family members, and with our friends at large. So how we act in those relationships when our kids are watching will be important and will contribute to what behaviors and feelings and actions they do in their own relationships. So we have a responsibility, and the stakes are high, Tyler, because happy, healthy relationships, as I said, impact and contribute the number one influence on our children's health and well-being. So it's important to start now. It's never too early. So even if your child is in elementary school or middle school, start watching, start observing, start talking to them, and start implementing and modeling healthy behaviors in your own relationships.
We're joined by Dr. Terri Orbuch, distinguished professor of sociology at Oakland University and otherwise known as the Love Doctor. In relationships, such a key factor to the health and the longevity of a relationship is quality levels of trust between all individuals involved and everybody that is involved on the outskirts of that relationship as well and associated with that relationship. How do you suggest that parents talk to their kids about trust, developing that trust, trusting in their romantic partner, and developing that over time?
Mm-hmm. Well, as you said, Tyler, trust is the number one important ingredient in any healthy relationship. If you don't have trust, you can't have love and commitment, and you can't even feel comfortable sharing your thoughts and feelings with another person. Trust is when you feel like this person has your best interests at heart and you want to share your deepest, darkest secrets, or you just want to share information with that person. So as a parent, you want to start discussions about trust. At an early age, you can just talk to your child about, why would you want to share a secret with a friend? What would have to be there in a relationship for you to feel comfortable to share something? And then when they get older, talk about commitment. Talk about how you can be a trusting partner or friend or family member and what that involves and what you can say and the kinds of questions that you can ask. And then third, model that as a parent with your child. So make sure that you're allowing them to share. Make sure that you're not judging or giving your values to them about something that they're disclosing to you that's a secret, that is at the core of who they are and their experiences. And then, again, talk to them about how special they are and how unique they are. What we find research shows is that if you can affirm your child, share a special, unique strength that they have, and talk to them about the positive qualities that they have, they're going to feel better about themselves. And then they're much more likely to trust you as the parent and trust others in their relationships.
We're joined by Dr. Terri Orbuch, Distinguished Professor of Sociology at Oakland University, otherwise known as the Love Doctor, and the author of Secrets to Surviving Your Children's Love Relationships, joining us on the Michigan Megacast. As you explore these relationships between parents and their kids who are experiencing, maybe for the first time in their lives, a romantic relationship or have had maybe some issues with their romantic relationships in the past, what are some of the more common challenges that you see parents are experiencing in relation to their kids' relationships? And what's your advice for parents to navigate those situations in a way that is healthy for their relationship with their kid, but also isn't at a detriment to their kid's relationship?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are lots of love challenges, I think, that parents experience with their young adult children. One, for example, is when, as a parent, you don't feel that your child picked the right love partner for them. What we know is that conversation, that discussion that you have with your child is so important, because if you judge, if you tell them what to do, if you say you shouldn't be with this love partner, then you distance them from you. And actually, then your child draws closer and is more likely to be attracted and want that love partner. So the stakes are high, as I said. So come to your child and again, ask them questions like, what do you think are the healthy relationship skills and factors in a happy, healthy relationship? And then, what do you think this partner is giving you? What are the strengths? What are the good qualities of this current love partner? Let them discover that perhaps this love partner isn't giving them what they need and want in a relationship, and continue the discussions. It's going to be not one discussion, but many conversations over time. Another example of a love challenge is when your child comes home with a love partner. Where do the two people sleep? And do they sleep in the same room, or do they sleep in separate rooms when they're underneath your roof and your values? And again, have a discussion with your child ahead of time. Talk to them about what they're expecting, what your values are. And if your values are different, or if your opinions are different, talk about compromise. Talk about doing it one way and then doing it perhaps another way over time? Or are there some compromise or alternatives that you can have when your children come home and stay with their love partner in your home? The book shares lots of examples where parents can approach these love challenges in positive, simple, science-based ways.
We're joined by Dr. Terri Orbuch, Distinguished Professor of Sociology at Oakland University, joining us on the Michigan Megacast, also the author of Surviving Your Children's Love Relationships. Some of the more some of the more controversial, not controversial, some of the more difficult challenges, I think, for parents today to be dealing with that's different from past generations is their child's identity, particularly their sexual preferences, their gender identity, and that's come under fire a lot recently, particularly in the state of Florida with the so-called Don't Say Gay bill. What are your thoughts on that bill? And then what are your thoughts on conversations that parents are going to be having with their children, especially in today's day and age, about their gender identity and about their sexuality that are different from past generations, and how parents should navigate that?
Well, I think it's important, Tyler, to have discussions where you talk about these topics, gender identity, sexual orientation with your children. And what you want to decide is, what is the age of my child and what is the maturity and emotional level of my child? And based on that, you want to implement these topics into discussions. And one of the best ways of doing that is using the media as a guide. Have you and your child sit down and watch a movie where perhaps someone in the television show or movie is having a challenge about gender identity, or has a different sexual orientation, or is talking about sexual orientation with their parent, and use that as a basis. Ask your child, well, what do you think the parent should have said? Or what do you think the child should have done? Or how should the child have approached the parent? So after you've had these discussions using the media, using the mass media that your child is watching, and making sure that you're having an appropriate age-related, maturity-related discussion, then bring it home and bring it to them and ask them questions about them, their friends, and what's happening at school and in their peer groups. So remember that talking about it, accepting your child, is so very important for their health and well-being, as well as their lifelong relationships in the future.
Dr. Orbuch, before we let you go, where can viewers find your books, such as Secrets to Surviving Your Children's Love Relationships, a guide for parents, and find more information, maybe even get in contact with you if they would like some advice on their love relationships?
Well, I have 3 self-help books, Tyler, that are all based on science. One for long-term relationships and how to improve those relationships. One for finding love. And then, as you said, Secrets to Surviving Your Love Relationships. They're all available on Amazon. People can get a hold of me at my website, which is Dr. Terri, thelovedoctor.com. That's all one word, DRTERRI. thelovedoctor.com, as well as you said, I'm a distinguished professor at Oakland University, oakland.edu.
Dr. Orbuch, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We've been joined by Dr. Terri Orbuch, Distinguished Professor of Sociology at Oakland University, otherwise known as the Love Doctor. Her book, Secrets to Surviving Your Children's Love Relationships, and other self-help books are available on Amazon.com. You can learn more about all of her work and her books by visiting Dr. Terri, thelovedoctor.com. We're going to take a quick break here on the Michigan Megacast. On the other side, our good friend Brian Peterson from Bees in the D will join us from the great outdoors at one of his many beehives. That's up next. This is the Michigan Megacast.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Whether you're sitting...
Joining us now is Brian Peterson from Bees in the D, back with us once again on the Oakland County Megacast. Brian, thank you for being with us.
Oh, it's always fun to be with you, Tyler. And we thought we'd try something different and actually come out to our hives today.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You're out at your hives and you're about to actually break ground on an entirely new pollinator center in Detroit. Can you tell us exactly what a pollinator center is? Is that just a set of hives? Is it something different?
No, it's actually the Michigan Pollinator Center, and it is going to be an actual education tutoring type center. Where there will be indoor space, but it is mainly focused on the outdoor space because we will have hives there. We'll have native bee hives. We'll have many different gardens with a lot of native plants to help with all of our different pollinators. So yes, we're set to break ground next month.
So why was this particular pollinator center in Detroit necessary? What ultimately was the rationale behind establishing this pollinator center? And then on top of that, why right in the city of Detroit?
So a couple things. Bees in the D, which you know is a nonprofit, we've been now in existence. We're coming up to our 6th year. And it was our 10-year goal to form some kind of an education center because a lot of the misconceptions about bees and wasps and things like that was part of our mission to educate people. And so we made it a 10-year goal to come up with a center where people can come, schools can come, families can come to learn more about our pollinators, their importance, and a lot of their misconceptions. And here we are in year 6, accomplishing our 10-year goal thanks to so many wonderful supporters. And Detroit is the perfect place because they're realizing more and more that even in our urban environments, we can coexist with nature. And we're seeing that in Detroit as Detroit's becoming a real urban garden, urban beekeeper mecca. I mean, it really is putting a place on the map for Detroit in the natural world.
And so where will the actual pollinators be located at the pollinator center?
So the Pollinator Center is actually going to be located in Core City in Detroit, which is awesome because it's central to the city. It's not far from downtown, but yet it's out a little ways where there can be a little bit more greenery. And the pollinators themselves, the beehives, are actually going to be up on the roof. We're going to actually have a green roof center to help also educate about how we can create green roofs, which is not only better for nature, but it's also better for the building because it helps with conservation of energy and water absorption. And so that's where those pollinators are going to be located at the center.
And so you mentioned conservation of energy with the green roof and with the location of the pollinator itself at that location at the Pollinator Center in Detroit, in central Detroit, especially for major cities like Detroit. Pollution is almost inevitable in those cities, and it tends to be much more significant in major urban areas than it is in suburban areas, certainly than it is in rural areas, although pollution affects everywhere at any time in our society. So why does it then become so much more critical to encourage those green spaces in the city itself, especially on top of buildings, which does have a certain effect on reducing or mitigating at least the pollution in major cities?
Right. So obviously, when you talk pollution, you're talking a very wide range. I mean, we talk about air, we could talk about water, we could be talking about any kind of pollution. But that's one thing that we want to help bring notice to. And we want to help businesses, individuals, help homeowners find ways that they can coexist with nature to help in that area, to help with recycling, to help reduce our imprint that we put onto our earth. And so I think it's very important that we model this in even a place like a city, a large city.
We're joined by Brian Peterson, the founder of Bees in the D, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast from out there at their actual Pollinator Center in Detroit.
And we're not, Tyler. No, just to let you know, I am not at our Pollinator Center. Okay. We're actually up north. I'm at Blake's, actually, where we do have some hives as well. I just wanted to get up here. I'm on my spring break. I think you know, Tyler, I'm a teacher, so I'm taking advantage of every minute I can get. And Mother Nature's not cooperating the best as I'm chipping away ice. And so I was hoping we could see some bees, but unfortunately, they're in their winter cluster. But there is hope, Tyler. The sun is coming out. I see pussy willows growing behind me. So hopefully spring is right around the corner.
So more information is on the website, beesinthedee.com, if you'd like to get involved, learn more about the Pollinator Center, or learn more about the science behind their operations in the city of Detroit and all throughout the state of Michigan. Beesinthedee.com is their website. We're joined by the founder, Brian Peterson, from Bees in the D. And so when you think about the benefits of bees, we've heard so much over the last several years from across the board, from ecological advocates, certainly from the organization, as we've spoken to you numerous times on the Megacast. But it's interesting because when you think about a major city like Detroit, when you think about a major metropolitan area like the Detroit metro area, you're not really often thinking about vast natural areas, especially in the urban center of Detroit. And so when you put bees in that environment, you're thinking about, okay, we're going to be helping the natural areas in the city. It kind of raises a little bit of a question mark because it's the city of Detroit. It's a major city. There's not exactly a whole lot of nature there. So how do these hives, how do these pollinator centers then ultimately do end up helping the environment in the city itself, even though it is a major urban area?
Wow, Tyler, there's so many things that you just unpacked there that I'm so glad you asked, because exactly what you said is what people assume. And that's why it was fun for me to be up at Blake's, where it is a much more rural environment, where our bees do really well, is because obviously there's apple trees and you would think a lot more resources. But that's the fun of Bees in the D. We are in rural areas, suburban areas, and of course in downtown urban areas. And actually studies have now shown that bees, especially honeybees, and even our native pollinators, like many of the bumblebees, are doing better in urban environments. And a lot of people think, what? There's no space. But people don't realize there's a lot more green in urban areas, and actually there's more diversity. And you have to really kind of unpack that a little bit, because the more you think about it, you're like, no, there's more diversity in the rural areas. Well, we've kind of created mono societies where there's acres and acres, miles and miles of corn or soybeans, which doesn't help with diversity. So actually, the urban areas are helping our pollinators to flourish. And here's the other part that's very important, and why another reason we started Bees in the D, food security. There are so many urban gardens now that are popping up in the city, especially with vacant lots next door to homes. And our pollinators then can go in and pollinate, which then increases the produce or the production of those gardens, which then gives people healthy organic food to eat.
So we're going to talk about the bee population in the state of Michigan, because we know in the past that there's been a lot of worries, not just in Michigan, across the U.S. and really around the world, about diminishing bee populations. In the state of Michigan, what is the state of our bee population, and how does returning that to normal levels or to optimal levels in the state of Michigan ultimately provide a great benefit to Michigan, both environmentally and ecologically, but also to our economy?
Well, the good news is, Tyler, is very few, really only one that could be in our area, the rusty patch bumblebee, are actually even listed on the endangered species list. But the bad news is, yes, our bees, native, our honeybees, the population is declining. Actually, the honeybees has been pretty consistent because of hobbyist beekeepers, and honeybees are a little bit different because they're more managed, like livestock. But the numbers of our native bees have been declining. And so by bringing attention to the importance of being, to put aside pesticides, to plant more natives and more pollinator-friendly plants, it helps all of our bees, all of our pollinators, our butterflies, everything. So hopefully we can help that trend from continuing to slide down by doing our part and helping out at home by planting some plants, using less pesticides.
We're joined by Bees in the D founder Brian Peterson on the Oakland County Megacast. More information on the website, beesinthedee.com. That's beesinthedee.com. And so, as we mentioned, for those that are just tuning in, Bees in the D is about to break ground on a new pollinator in the city of Detroit, in the center of the city of Detroit. How has that pollinator been funded? Where did those funds come from to ultimately help Bees in the D establish this pollinator right in Detroit?
So Bees in the D is very fortunate that people can sense our passion and they understand the importance of this education that needs to happen and this conservation that needs to happen. So we are very fortunate to have donors that are helping to make this happen. And of course, we do a lot of fundraisers and a lot of events that also help bring in some funds to help with this project.
We're joined by Brian Peterson from Bees in the D on the Oakland County Megacast. On your website, you have a listing for a Bees in the D intern. You're looking for some additional help with your organization, especially as you expand to other different ventures, such as this new pollinator, and expand all throughout the state of Michigan. What kind of applicants are you looking for, and what would be some of the duties that they would undertake as interns at Bees in the D?
Well, right now, the intern that we're looking for is more on the back end of things with the social media, with statistics, things like that, that we are really trying to ramp up a little bit. Because, I mean, that is where a lot of people go to learn more. And so that is an area that on the other side with the other Brian, because I think, there's two Brians, he's kind of spearheading that. I kind of spearhead the bees in a lot of the education, being a teacher. But we're very excited that we continue to grow and bring in more people. We have so many amazing volunteers. We're looking forward to the warmer weather so that we can get our volunteers involved as well. And we have a lot of really fun events coming up, Tyler, so be watching for that as well.
Yeah, you do have a lot of really fun events coming up. Those are listed on their website, beesinthed.com. We're joined by Brian Peterson, founder of Bees in the D, on the Oakland County Megacast. A couple months away, one of those events is the Beehive visit at the Cranes Building in Detroit on June 4th. What will that event entail, and how can people join in if they'd like to?
So that event's really special to us because that is actually a Girl Scout event. We, together with Southeast Michigan Girl Scouts, have brought back the Girl Scout beekeeping patch. And so this is a opportunity, especially for Girl Scouts, to earn that patch by first going to an educational session with me or any other bee organization. Then they actually do a live hive tour where they would go inside of the hives. We suit them up. We have the suits for them. They get to experience that. And then the third part of that is they then do a project that helps further the mission of the importance of our pollinators, and they can earn that patch. But we also have some hive tours coming up at some of our hives at West Bloomfield. We'll be adding them here at Lakes for the Lavender Festival. We're going to be doing some honey sampling, and we're very excited that this summer we have an intern coming in from Argentina, and they're a bee company from Argentina that we're going to do a little swap of businesses. And during that month of June that we do that, we are going to be doing a honey sampling, honeys from the world, where you'll get to sample different honeys from all around the world. Because I think we've talked in the past, Tyler, that every hive, every location, the honey tastes different, because the bees are going to different sources. So the honey from here at Lakes may have more of a fruity, obviously, flavor, unlike some of the hives in Detroit that have more of a wildflower flavor. So that will be a lot of fun.
We're joined by Brian Peterson, founder of Bees in the D, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. You also have other bee events that can pop up through the year, or other organizations or schools or individuals that would like to hold a bee event and learn more with Bees in the D. For those that would like a bee event at their place of work, their school, their organization, what can they do in order to make that happen in partnership with Bees in the D?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, Tyler. Actually, a lot of events coming up with libraries, too. At the Royal Oak Library, we're doing a 3-part series on that. All they have to do is email us at bees@beesinthed.com and just let us know. And we actually have some new partners coming up, too, a few schools that we're excited about that are going to be hosting hives as well. And so it is fun for us to continue to spread that map of hives to build that Detroit Bee Highway that we talk about, that helps to create these pollinators to help keep our ecosystem and our food industry strong.
So if people want to check out the new pollinator that's about to break ground in Detroit, what's the timeline on that? When can people expect for that to be open and ready and in operation in Detroit?
Well, we're being optimistic. We are breaking ground next month, and it's probably going to be a year-long project of getting it built, because it's not a huge center, And then, of course, the gardens are going to be ever evolving. So we're hoping to be able to host some events in 2023.
We're joined by Brian Peterson, founder of Bees in the D on the Oakland County Megacast. More information on their website, beesinthed.com. Brian, another minute or two before we'll have to say goodbye today. Anything else at this moment that would be important for our audience to know about the pollinator, about Bees in the D, or other interesting things happening with your organization that we haven't discussed yet today?
I think we covered a lot of it, Tyler. I always appreciate that about you bringing up a lot of the different topics we have. I do want to encourage people to keep in mind that we can be a part with helping our pollinators. I'm giving some people permission to not clean up your garden too efficiently too soon because a lot of our native bees are in that brush, possibly hibernating, or need some of that hollow tubing or sticks to lay their eggs. And so just keep that in mind when you are cleaning up your gardens. And maybe each of us can plant one extra plant, one flowering plant that will help our pollinators even more. And of course, have a water source out that helps our bees, especially throughout the summertime.
Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
It's always a pleasure, Tyler. I look forward to next time. And maybe next time we'll get in the hives. It won't be so cold.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is. Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line, for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844.
Joining us now is the program is the Vice President of Workforce Development and Rehabilitation at JVS and Kadima as we approach the summer job season. And many are searching for some extra help in finding that great next job or that seasonal work that they're seeking as well. James Willis joins us now on the Megacast. James, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Tyler.
Appreciate having you on. So first off, for those that aren't familiar with JVS and Kadima, can you tell our audience about the work that your organization does to help people all across the community in a number of different areas?
Sure. I'd love to share some information about the agency. So JVS Kadima has been in the Metro Detroit area going on 80 years now. We provide employment services to the general public, case coordination, housing, and day programming for individuals with disabilities, as well as provide day program and respite services for seniors and individuals experiencing early onset dementia.
We're joined by James Willis, Vice President of Workforce Development and Rehabilitation at JVS Human Services and Kadima, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And so we're approaching the warmer seasons of the year. Spring has begun. It doesn't seem like it all too much on some days, but it's here, and soon there will be summer. With summer, we have both kids coming back from college or in high school that are looking for work, but also some adults too that are looking to re-enter the workforce, maybe dip their toes back in and slowly approach getting back into the workforce. And with that comes summer jobs. JVS and Kadima has a really nice, interesting program with summer job coaches that can help some people get back into the workforce or enter in to the workforce maybe for the first time with some summer jobs. Can you tell us about the summer job coaching program and how it can help people that are looking to seek a summer job?
Absolutely. So we're really excited about continuing our summer internship program for high school students with disabilities. This will be our 9th year of offering this opportunity to individuals with disabilities to kind of try out and get comfortable with work again. And last year we had over 100 students participate in the program. This year we're aiming to have 160 students participate in the program. And with this number of individuals working at different sites across Metro Detroit, both in Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne counties, we have a large need for job coaches to support and provide training to these individuals while on the job. So the program basically runs from early July till late August. We're looking for around 30 job coaches to provide this support to the student interns over the course of the summer. The student interns and job coaches will be working in restaurants, retail stores, golf courses, small manufacturing sites, and even public parks across Metro Detroit. And it really is a great opportunity for either a teacher or teacher's aide that's not working in the summer, college students who may have an interest in social work, psychology, human resources, those kinds of fields. Recent retirees that aren't quite ready to retire yet, but still looking to kind of make a difference. And really just anyone that has some patience and would like to make an impact on an individual who might not normally have the opportunity to work. These job coaches really open up opportunities for these individuals with disabilities to get their feet wet with work before graduating from high school, which really sets them on a path from transitioning from school to work. And again, if we didn't have these job coaches that we bring on each summer for this opportunity, these opportunities for these high school students with disabilities just wouldn't be there.
So tell us a little bit about what these summer job coaches are doing on the job, both in the search, but also on the actual job itself with these individuals with disabilities to support them in their efforts on the job, at their internship, or at their paid work, whatever the case may be, but also to help with the businesses that may be navigating for the first time working with somebody that does have a disability.
Absolutely. It's a great question. So, the job coaches really serve as sort of a liaison or kind of a crosswalk between the student intern and the supervisor. So the job coaches, for each of the work sites gets a sense of what those job responsibilities are, really what the employer is looking for. And then they really work closely with those interns and those supervisors to make sure that those interns are performing good quality work. They serve as sort of role models for the interns and role modeling good behaviors. And they're just generally there to answer questions and be a support. And keeping in mind that for most of these interns, this is the first job exposure that they've had. So having somebody there as sort of a support and a role model for them really makes that transition that they're kind of going through a much easier one. For all of us, our first job was scary and, we didn't know exactly what to expect, but boy, could you imagine having somebody at the work site there as kind of a support for you? So if you had questions or concerns about anything, somebody that you can just kind of go to kind of get some feedback really makes for a nice transition. And really, over the course of the summer, we see tremendous growth in these interns in terms of their confidence and their readiness to go out and find employment after high school.
We're joined by James Willis, the Vice President of Workforce Development and Rehabilitation at JVS and Kadima on the Oakland County Megacast. And when we talk about these individuals that are helping those with disabilities, that are seeking these jobs, that are in these jobs and these internships, who are these individuals that do become the summer job coaches? Are they professionals that are in certain industries? Are they retirees, college students, a mixture?
Yeah, it really is kind of a mixture. So we've had individuals, teachers' aides, often who are not working in the school systems, as well as teachers who are not working in the schools over the summer. This is a good opportunity for those folks. Again, college students who have an interest in, any of the helping professions, psychology, social work, sociology. This is a great opportunity for them to get some exposure to working with individuals with disabilities or individuals who may be presenting with some barriers, as well as a retiree or someone who just recently retired but isn't quite ready to put their working shoes away, but would like to work in either a part-time or full-time capacity. And that's one of the great opportunities with this program is we have opportunities for job coaches to work anywhere from 20 hours a week all the way up to 50 hours per week. So it really is a great opportunity and fits into, so if you're not quite ready to commit to working a full-time shift, we do have those 20-hour-a-week opportunities for those individuals that are looking for something like that.
And whether it's working with someone that has a physical disability, a developmental or cognitive disability, maybe a bit of both in some cases, what sort of training does go into this opportunity for those job coaches if they haven't had that formal training before, like you said, studying or working in psychological fields or sociology or in teaching and so on?
It's a really great question. We want to make sure that before that job coach gets onto the site with their students or their interns for the first day, we want to make sure that they're coming with a set of strategies and a set of tools, a set of tools, so that they can engage those interns in a way that they're going to be confident and it's going to be helpful for the students. So the first week of the program, we're providing support and training to each of the job coaches on just general strategies for training, general strategies for kind of engaging that individual with the disability, and even some level of disability etiquette. You know, a lot of individuals who haven't had a whole lot of experience in working with an individual with a disability may not know some of the nuances that people that are kind of invested in the field or have had specific training are aware of. So we want to make sure that they've had some exposure to that disability etiquette prior to their first day on the job.
We're joined by James Willis, the Vice President of Workforce Development and Rehabilitation at JVS Human Services, as well as Kadima, joining us on the Michigan Megacast. So then, how long does this program last? The summer job coach program, both for those that are participating as the workers themselves and as these coaches, how long does that relationship usually go on?
Yeah, so the program starts in early July. We're starting right after the 4th of July, and will extend through the end of August. So it's about a 6 to 8 week program, depending upon the need of the student and the job coach. So about 6 to 8 weeks over the course of the summer.
James mentioned earlier that summer job coach opportunities are open for those that are college students that may be studying in a number of different fields related to working with those with disabilities and unrelated as well. If they are up for this opportunity, is there a way for them to potentially get college credit?
Absolutely. You know, we find that a lot of students take this experience and bring it back to college kind of in the fall and use it for papers, use it for college credit. So yeah, it's always something that we're happy to work with those college students in terms of getting credit for their experience with us.
For these individuals with disabilities or for their families that may be interested in this program, getting themselves or getting their loved ones some work opportunities with somebody there that provides that support system that is often so necessary for these individuals across their daily lives. How can they go about signing up for this program? When is there a cutoff, if any, to participate in the summer job program?
Great question, Tyler. So if an individual or family member has an interest in participating in the summer internship program for folks with disabilities, the enrollment and eligibility is kind of done through their school system. So they would just reach out to either their school counselor or transition coordinator in the school and just let them know that they're interested in the summer work experience program offered through Michigan Rehabilitation Services and JVS.
We're joined by James Willis, Vice President of Workforce Development and Rehabilitation at JVS and Kadima, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast, announcing that they are looking to hire approximately 30 summer job coaches to provide training and support to high school students with disabilities in their summer job or summer internship work as well. So for those summer job coaches openings, how do people go about seeking those positions if they would like to help your organization support this program?
Absolutely. So again, we have opportunities that range from 20 to 50 hours per week. So there's the part-time, full-time, and even opportunities that would gain a little bit of overtime over the course of the program. The rate of pay is $16 per hour, and we're even offering a $200 attendance bonus for those summer coaches that demonstrate good summer over the course of the program. And it's real simple to apply. You simply go to our website, which is jvshumanservices.org/jobs, and you'll see the posting right on there. The other piece that I'll add is we also have full-time opportunities as well. So if at the end of the summer you find that you really like this type of work, this summer seasonal position can turn into a full-time opportunity as well. And those opportunities are posted on our website as well. Again, jvshumanservices.org/jobs.
We're joined by James Willis, the Vice President of Workforce Development and rehabilitation at JVS and Kadima. With us on the Oakland County Megacast. James, another couple minutes with you before we'll say goodbye at this time. Anything else that we haven't talked about in regards to the summer job program through your organizations, or any other programs that are coming up this summer and the next few months that we should be keeping a lookout for?
So JVS just recently merged with Kadima Mental Health Services, and we've predominantly had been kind of previously an employment services or agency providing career and employment services. We're really excited about our merger with Kadima because now we're able to provide additionally housing services as well as mental health services, which in this day and age with COVID and all of things kind of going on around the world, adding this additional piece of services to our already fairly comprehensive service array, I think really is necessary, knowing kind of the circumstances everyone's in. And we're really excited in the next couple of months with the merger. We're going to be announcing a new name for JVS and Kadima. So be on the lookout for a new name.
That is going to do it for today's edition of the Oakland County and Michigan Megacast. You can learn more information by visiting our website at civiccentertv.com and clicking on our Megacast link, where you can view all of today's interviews on demand as well as our full episode as well. Big thank you to everybody that joined us on today's program. Including Michelle Sider, artist, Dr. Scott Tiegs from Oakland University, the Love Doctor, Dr. Terri Orbuch, Brian Peterson from Bees in the D, as well as James Willis from JVS and Kadima. More information, again, civiccentertv.com/megacast. We can learn more about our entire network of stations as well. Go to our coronavirus page at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Keep up to date on everything you need to know about COVID-19 from the MDHHS, the CDC, and the Oakland County Health Division, and stay up to date on the top stories making headlines across the Great Lakes State each and every day. Big thank you to our crew that makes this show possible 5 times a week. Our technical director, Calvin Brown, with me in the studio here for the full 2-hour marathon that is the Oakland County and Michigan Megacast each and every day. Jared Clark, our Zoom producer, out at the office of My Michigan TV in the bustling metropolis of Troy, Michigan. The king of birthday boys, Larry Nyland, our producer, booking all the guests, getting everybody ready to have an informed conversation with us and helping us get ready to have informed conversations with them as well. And Maddie Mushkin out at Master Control, helping us on and off the air each and every day. On My Michigan TV, Steve Lato is next on Steve Lato Live, followed by Larry and Maddie Live, who will return tomorrow at 10 a.m.